Justin Nguyen, the general manager, will be in here with us talking about what's going on here in the dealership. They just took over October 5th. It's a new ownership team. John Dobbs Jr. is part of the group along with the Ward family. Been in the car business in Arkansas for a long time. Of course, John's family, the Dobbs family in the car and truck business goes way back, and now they're back in it. Great people to deal with. We will talk about, hey, what deals are out there for you? And if you've got a trade in, Justin Nguyen, the general manager here, will tell you best prices they've probably seen in probably 20 years. That's as long as he's been in the business. But got a great lineup today. Bill Cameron from ESPN Radio in Auburn is on here with us. Mitch Davis, MitchDavisShow.com, going to be on shortly after that talking some basketball. Richmond Weaver from up in upstate Greenville, South Carolina, talking Rich take on sports, talking Clemson, the ACC, and a South Carolina update. How is the coach up there, Shane Beamer, doing? What's the Gamecocks' game plan to get out from under the shadow? And it's a big shadow of Clemson. Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy Show podcast, will be on with us as well. And Jimmy Ott. And Bill, you introduced me to Jimmy Ott as well as Jake Crane. Jimmy Ott from ESPN 104.5 in Baton Rouge. And the unfiltered LSU update is always a lot of fun. And he's usually at a fun place where there's a lot of fun things happening. But Bill Cameron, you do a great show every day, 4 to 6 p.m., ESPN 106.7, The Drive in Auburn. You're my mentor. You got Jake and I both. You're our coach, and Jimmy Hodge, you're here with us. But Bill, let's get started talking about what's going on right now. I know Auburn they announced early they would not go to the NCAA tournament. Well, that's obvious. Then I wouldn't be going anyway, but that probably had a little bit of an effect. But you've also got the youngest basketball team in the country. There's a lot of talent on this team that Bruce Pearl has. But going into next year, I'm sure the optimism is going to be really high. But give me a report card, A, B, C, D, or F, for what Auburn has accomplished with all they got going on right now, and then just the general view of the SEC basketball race.
Well, first of all, Rob, hey, man, it's good to talk to you again.
Always.
Yeah, the situation with Auburn basketball, it is so frustrating for Bruce Pearl. He's talked, as a matter of fact, he's used 2 or 3 times in the last couple of weeks the phrase punch in the gut, because it seems like it's been one after the other. Now, he has not acted at all like he's in any disagreement with Auburn's plan and idea of going ahead and self-imposing, because they figured this year would be a bit of a relearning curve with so many young players. Statistically, the youngest team in the country, they have no seniors. They have 2 juniors, and both of them are transfers. So they really had no experience at all coming back. But on top of that, their starting point guard, Sharif Cooper, one of, if not the most highly touted Auburn signee ever until this year's signee of Jabari Smith, has, couldn't play the first 11 ball games as the NCAA was looking into, and we're not really sure what, but so they didn't have their starting point guard to start the season. So it opened up the season with Turbo Jones expected to get the bulk of the duty there at point guard, but another true freshman in Justin Powell just outplayed him and, started off the season just spectacularly with 26 points in his first game, really distributing the ball, not turning it over. Then just before Sharif Cooper comes back, Turbo Jones, because of the lack of playing time he was getting, decided he would transfer. And then Justin Powell goes down with a concussion, and we haven't seen him since. So Auburn has not had 2 of the 3 players that could really handle the point available at the same time. They haven't been able to have Sharif and Justin together for 1 second of playing time this year. And so it's made it really difficult. And it's a young team that when they shoot it well, they play pretty well. When they don't, they struggle. And now, once we've hit the stretch, Auburn lost 5 consecutive SEC games by no more than 5 points and by a total of 15 points. And you can understand, at least I can, 18 and 19-year-olds who don't have that carrot. They don't have anything to be playing for here as far as postseason play. They're not as into being spoilers as they are, wanting to continue playing. So it's really tough for them to stay focused. And I know it's really been frustrating for Coach Pearl and for Auburn fans to see this team literally limping to the finish.
Yeah, and real quick before we go to Jimmy Hodge, you look at Kansas and all the other programs, Arizona, LSU, that had similar investigations. They're still ongoing, and none of them have admitted to anything or even attempted to take responsibility or ownership. But Auburn has.
Well, and see, I mean, there are a lot of Auburn people that wonder why didn't Auburn do the same thing. But then now you look at the news that came out, was it yesterday or night before last, about Oklahoma State, and it looks like Oklahoma State's situation is going to be going to turn out pretty good for them, and for for South Carolina, where Lamont Evans was involved with almost the exact same thing as Chuck Person was, and it looks like they're going to be okay down the road. So, I'll tell you this: if Auburn gets slapped with more, then there are going to be some people wondering, why should you ever cooperate with the NCAA again?
Yeah, and I just wonder how much longer we're going to have an NCAA. That's again, we're going to have an NCAA basketball tournament this year. I'm convinced we will, but if not, financially, I think that is just the end of the NCAA. Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville, come on in here.
Yeah, well, I think Auburn made the right move at the beginning of the year when they announced they weren't going to, they were just going to self-impose a postseason sanction, just because I think I think Bruce just wanted to try to get this thing behind him as soon as possible, and I think it was the right move. As Bill mentioned, they're the youngest team out of the 350 basketball programs that play Division I at the Division I level, and again, you've pretty much described the situation. I mean, not having Cooper available till January 10th, really set them back also. And then even then, he's had a couple of instances where he's been banged up, and of course he hadn't been able to play for, I guess, the last week or so. And without him, it's really a struggle, because I think being so young and with the SEC from top to bottom being as strong as it's been in memory, and again with that many freshmen, I think it's a situation where they just kind of hit the wall. And it's I know it's been frustrating for Bruce again not to be able to get Cooper until early January. So it's just been a tough situation all the way around. But we also know that Bruce has a history of doing a great job on the recruiting trail, being able to get good basketball players to come to his program. And of course, again, all these freshmen now, they have a full season of Power 5 experience under their belts. And I have no doubt Bruce is going to make some additions that are going to make them extremely competitive, getting ready for the 2021-22 season.
Yeah, Bill, talk about this class. I mean, a lot of people, it's amazing. If a guy comes in as a freshman and scores 25 points in a game, it doesn't matter who the opponent is, the draft projection boards go crazy. Vinny the Weasel, Joey Bag of Donuts up in New Jersey, some grease ball. There's always somebody out there that they're going to get your players into the NBA. And Gordon Ford, who's on our show, regular guest, friend of mine, really big basketball mind. He said something last weekend. I want your feedback on this. He said the kids today in recruiting, because of the AAU, it's unbelievable. They're almost sold off in middle school to these handlers, but they're sold to the colleges on talent alone, not because they're great basketball players in terms of fundamentals, playing great defense and being 80, 90% at the free throw line, things like that. Give me your feedback on that.
No, I don't disagree with all of that. I mean, I think in many cases, the fact that there are so many kids that really almost opt out of high school and are playing travel in AAU, difficult for them to get into defense as much. And I think you're seeing, I think Auburn's a really very good example. You've got some players that have the ability to be good defensive players, but they don't understand what it takes defensively yet. But as far as sure, they're always trying to sell them on what they're going to get, but the NBA is a little different than the NFL. I mean, they're guys that at least have a shot, even if they're drafted much lower or undrafted free agents. But as far as the NBA is concerned, if you're not a first round pick, you're really up against it. So that's what is the most critical thing, and what Sharif Cooper is going to have to determine. He's in a situation where he is not. He and his family don't have to have the money of professional basketball for him right now. And I saw him projected yesterday as the 22nd pick. Well, he's in a situation where he could come back and try to move into the lottery, which would be a lot more money. If you're a lot of other players, I know Bruce in the past has said he's got a player that's a first round pick. He's going to encourage them to go, and he may not discourage Sharif this time. But if Sharif has a chance to be a lottery pick, there's a lot of difference in being a lottery pick as opposed to being a mid to late first round pick.
Yeah. Everybody, the last couple of years, Auburn's had Chuma Okeke win in the first round to Orlando. This past year, Isaac Okoro to the Cleveland Cavaliers. That it would be, I guess, from a recruiting standpoint, you could say this is the third straight year Auburn's had a first round draft pick, but Sharif Cooper really missed the first half of the season. And what's he shooting from 3-point range? Below 20%?
No, it's below 30. It's
Okay.
in the 28, I think. Is what
Okay.
it is. So definitely still needs to get better. The other thing, Rob, that he needs to get is just physically stronger. I mean, he is an amazing ball handler and distributor, but he's taken a beating in the SEC, and that's nothing compared to the grown men in the NBA.
Exactly. And that was my point, is that physically there's so much more in the NBA. You're going to get banged around every night. It's almost like football. And what is Sharif? 6 foot, 6'1", but still the maturity part of it is night and day difference. And maybe we'll get to the point like we are in college baseball, where once you sign with a school, you got to play at least 3 years. And the one and done deal, like what Kentucky does, this year it's really caught up with them. Now, of course, it's getting close to SEC tournament time. They're starting to play a lot better. Jimmy, when you look here at the SEC race right now, Alabama and Bill, both of y'all, they maybe they're early, but this is year 2 under Nate Oates, who came down from Buffalo. I think Alan Green hired him when he was the AD at Buffalo. This guy's a really good basketball coach. It's not like he inherited, an empty cupboard. There's a lot of talent on that team. But I'll ask you, Jimmy, and then Bill, is Alabama a lock right now if they keep playing well, even if they lose in the tournament, to be a 1 or 2 seed?
I think it's going to be difficult for them to fall off the two list right now, unless they were to lose out. I mean, if they lose the next 2 or 3 ball games, get bumped in the first round of the tournament, they fall off the 2 line. But I think they'll probably be a 2. Nate's also shown that he's a pretty good recruiter too. I mean, he's brought in Javon Quinterly and Josh Primo. I mean, they've got some talent coming back and signing J.D. Davidson in the early signing period. So they're bringing the talent at Tuscaloosa as well.
Yeah, Jimmy, come on in.
Well, I will say this. I mean, Alabama certainly has an experienced team. I mean, it's senior laden, and that's kind of what surprised me about their performance against Arkansas earlier in the week. I was surprised that they got rattled like they did, especially Petty. And they've done a good job winning most of the close games, but when the tournament begins, you're going to be playing all your games in Indiana. But it's going to be pretty much the same for everybody. I mean, it'd be a neutral site for everybody except obviously if Indiana makes it. I mean, that's going to be, they're the ultimate bubble team now, and maybe Purdue's in there, but they're obviously not going to be a threat to go anywhere. But you're going to have to, keep your composure. And I don't know what Bill thinks about this, but especially watching them the other night, when you look at their team offensively, if you can keep them from getting into transition and make them play half-court offense, they are not nearly as effective. And another thing I've noticed, and I've always kind of been skeptical if you're going to make a long run in the tournament. And another, well, I'm sorry to skip around, but Herb Jones too. It surprised me that he seemed a little rattled the other night too. He did not, have his normal steady all-around game, and he's 6'7", and really they're the biggest guy they have. I think that's really effective. I really thought that once they got Bruner back, he would give them that inside presence that could bang and rebound and so forth. But really, from what I've seen, especially since he's come back, he's almost like a stretch five. He's not a guy that seems like he wants to post down low and mix it up and knock people around. And when you get in the tournament, you're playing teams like Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan, Ohio State, Illinois, who have guys that can really bang. I just don't know how good a matchup that's going to be, and they're actually going to probably have a chance to face some teams earlier in the tournament that have a strong inside presence. And I'm just curious to see if Bruner is going to be able, as he comes back for another 2 or 3 games since he's been out for the last 3 weeks or so, if he's going to be able to help them in those really important areas of the game, which involve just rebounding, playing solid defense, and again, just being able to muscle people around under there.
I agree with you. I agree with you completely there, John. I mean, the thing about Alabama is, and it's similar to what we've seen with Auburn the last few years. If they're not running and gunning and hitting threes and scoring off their defense, they're much easier to handle. And one thing we've seen with John Petty, especially, not so much Herb Jones, but John in the past, if things aren't going well, he'll show his emotions and his frustrations. I think the other thing that is a concern for Alabama is Herb Jones has fouled out 3 of the last 4 ball games. And if the officials start calling it tight, Alabama loves to be really aggressive. They're a very handsy, physical team. But you're right. They're not as physical around the basket as they are out on the perimeter and coming up with steals and trying to create, running lanes.
Bill, another question now. Arkansas looks like they're the second best team in the SEC.
Right now, they look like the best team in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm looking at it from a number standpoint, but they're playing lights out. Eric Musselman in his second year, and Sonny Smith on the show last year, when we asked him about the new coaches coming in the league, first name he jumped all over was Eric Musselman, and Nate Oates was second. Here they are, year 2. And Musselman is a great recruiter, great motivator. His players really push and play their hearts out for him. How important is it if Alabama goes in, loses in the first or second game in the SEC tournament, is that going to be a real killer for them to get that number 1 seed? Or they already, if they end up winning the rest of their games, they'll be regular season SEC champion. Is that going to be enough to convince the NCAA?
I think it's going to be really difficult for them to hit a 1 seed. What do you think, John?
No, I don't think they're a 1. There are 2. I don't think they're as good as Michigan, Ohio State, or
Gonzaga.
Gonzaga, Baylor. And as I mentioned, right now the Big Ten, I think, they're sitting at 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, Illinois,
with
too, yeah. Right.
Oh yeah, Coburn. I mean, that guy is an absolute horse, and and again, you face up against a team like Iowa with Garza, and you got multiple guys like Wieskamp and Bohannon, and guys that can just fill it up from three that play a very similar style of offense that Bama does, but yet they got that big moose down low. So no, I think Bama's looking at a 2 seed there, and I think there's probably 5 or 6 teams that have a legitimate chance to win the national championship, but there's probably 30 that have a shot to make the Final Four. But I think there's only 5 or 6 that have a chance, that have all the weapons that you need to win it. But with that being said, to me, it's still Gonzaga and Baylor, and then there's a couple of notches down at least from that point till you get to Michigan and the Big Ten teams. But I would be careful with Baylor right now because they hadn't played for 3 weeks until they played Iowa State Saturday, and they certainly look like it because they struggled the whole game, against Iowa State at home, and were able to hang on and win. But Baylor's got a really tough 4-game stretch to end the regular season. I wouldn't be surprised if they lost a game or two because they're not fully recovered, I don't think, physically from the virus situation. But once the tournament starts, though, and they play a couple of games in their conference tournament, they'll be back to playing like they normally do. But and at the same time, a loss or two wouldn't really make any kind of difference, because all that matters at the end of the day is winning the whole thing when you're Gonzaga and Baylor right now, when you consider the type of season that they've had.
Yeah.
So, but it's going to be a great tournament. There's going to be virtually no predictability with that group of about 25 teams there, where anybody can beat anybody.
Yeah. Bill, real quick, I know you got to go. And one more thing, tell people, first of all, if you had a chance, I don't know if you have to have Coach Brian Harsin, Auburn's new football coach, on the show. He has come in, put together a staff. About half the coaches, Derek Mason was the coach at Vanderbilt. He's a heck of a defensive coach, defensive backs, defensive coordinator now at Auburn. Mike Bobo comes over from South Carolina. Will Friend comes over from Tennessee, then South Carolina for a couple of weeks. Now he's at Auburn. What's the general feeling about Brian Harsin, the personality, real in about a minute or so? Biggest difference between him and Gus and that previous staff? Because he seems to me like an alpha male. He kind of reminds me of Rip from that series Yellowstone.
I hadn't thought about that, Rob. That's not a bad comparison, but good show. But no, he is definitely intense. He seems like he's got a pretty good sense of humor. Just from a couple of players that I've talked to, we still haven't had a chance to meet face to face, or I'm still in line to try to get him on the show. But from players that he's talked to, they've had some Zoom calls with Letterman and things like that. They say he's opened up and shown a little more of his sense of humor. But with the media, it's pretty much been straightforward. You can see he's very focused. He knows what he wants. He knows how he wants to get there. And he's also, the other thing is, I don't if I've heard it once, I've heard it at least a dozen times. His line, do you want it right, or you want it right now, or do you want it done right?
Yeah.
He's methodical, he's intense, but the players really seem to be taken to him. It sounds like they're off to the big start of the off-season training program. Yeah. So we'll see. They'll start practice 2 weeks, and then we'll start hearing some actual football.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Bill, real quick. I know you got to get ready. How do people follow you? I know you have a great show on the ESPN every day, and you put out information about Auburn, the SEC, but you've been doing it a long time and incredible memory. And we're going to get you on and also talk some baseball here as we move along, because more than anything, you're a baseball junkie. Yeah.
Well, you can. I've sort of stayed away from Twitter. I'll let Dan, my co-host, Dan handle that.
Yeah.
He can handle that. But you can check out the drive on ESPNAU.com. Check out the podcast. We're on 4 to 6 every day. Yeah, I got to get ready for that here in a few minutes. We've got all kinds of things going on here locally that we need to get to, including, hoping Tennessee doesn't take it too hard on the Tigers without Sharif tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Bill Cameron, thank you so much for being on here with us, and I'll be listening to the show as soon as we get off the air as well. I love it, and look forward to having you on here again soon. Thanks so much.
All right, guys.
Hey, Mitch Davis has just joined us, guys, from the MitchDavisShow.com. And hey, Mitch, let's talk here for a few minutes before we take a break. But Jimmy and I have been talking with Bill Cameron from ESPN Radio in Auburn, talking about this SEC basketball race. Give us a quick clue in real quick. I know you keep a close eye on the Memphis Tigers. Penny Hardaway seems like he's getting things going the direction that everyone thought they would go a lot earlier, but they are starting to win. He's recruited some talent, and give us an update and also talk about the staff that he has. How strong are they in terms of developing the players? Because there are a lot of really good players on that roster. I mean, that recruiting class 3 years ago was number one. We know what's happened, but if you don't develop the players, they either get bored and they go backwards. And then if you've got a lot of talented guys that aren't playing, it can create a really bad atmosphere. But what's working for Memphis, and why are things improving?
Yeah, so sorry guys, I have to talk quietly. I'm at the baseball park here at Memphis. One thing about Penny Hardaway, they're just, I don't know what it is. They're just winning. Winning cures everything. I talked to Nick Suss last week, who's covers Ole Miss, Clarion Ledger. He said, winning cures everything. And that's kind of the mindset Memphis has right now. And heading into this final stretch, they had a game with Houston get postponed. It was supposed to be a road game, and now then they had Houston again next Sunday. It was supposed to be a home game. That game is now a road game because of an agreement with the AAC before the season that said, hey, if there's COVID postponements, the team who had to postpone, so that would have been Memphis, will be the road team heading to whoever the opponent was. So Memphis is going to close out their season. They play Cincinnati on Sunday. I think it's Wichita State on Tuesday or Wednesday of next week at Wichita, and then Houston on the road at Houston to close out the season, heading into the AAC tournament there in Dallas.
All right. You're looking at this basketball race. Jimmy and Bill and I were talking. They both gave what they think are the top teams, the SEC, and around the country. Give us, I know you've just got a few minutes. We'll let you off here at about 3:36 or so because I know you're at the baseball game. But look at the national picture. We know about Michigan stopping and starting a lot, but they're back in. Ohio State's back in. They're still ranked very high. They've, again, been off a lot. Michigan, it's weird. Their football, their basketball, they've conducted over 66,000 virus tests since they came back to school with 311 positives. And they are the most either paranoid or overly cautious or helicopter parents of any school in the country. Nobody wants anybody to get sick. But do you think Michigan's that good?
I think they are. Watching them, especially play last night against Iowa, I mean, they look dominant. They look like one of the best teams in the country. And I think the gap between Baylor, Gonzaga in the field is starting to close because, Baylor hasn't played in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I think it is. Gonzaga, they looked pretty bad last night against Santa Clara. I think Gonzaga is actually going to end up losing in that WCC tournament next weekend. I could see them losing to St. Mary's, at BYU, or somebody of that nature, even like a San Francisco, which would spell disaster for the SEC when you're trying to get in Ole Miss, when you're trying to get in a Kentucky or somebody of that nature. It would just spell disaster. But looking at Gonzaga right now, they just don't look like the best team in the country. And I truly, when you look at 1 through 10, 1 through 12, there's really not just a gigantic gap between those teams right now because, again, we haven't seen Baylor play in a month. Gonzaga is starting to look a little soft as well. So it's going to be kind of hard to see and tell heading into the rest of the season who truly the best team is. And when I talked to Jay Billis 2 days ago, he said the same thing. We don't know. We don't know who's the best team. And looking at the NCAA tournament this year, this tournament's going to be wide open because we're not going to have fans. If we do have fans, it's going to be limited, and it's going to be an extreme neutral site environment. And unlike, Gonzaga got to play out there in, let's say, Los Angeles, which is an hour and a half from campus, then we're not going to have that this year. Everybody's playing in Indiana, Everybody is playing away from the campus, away from the fans, and it's going to be basketball. So it's going to be a lot of fun in the tournament to watch.
All right, let's talk about Kentucky real quick. Jimmy made a point early on. This just looks like a bad crop of one and dones, but we all know as Kentucky gets closer to the SEC tournament, Big Blue Nation comes alive. It's like as if the fans demand it and the players know it. Hey, don't tell me tradition is overrated and it's not a big deal. It means everything. It's why you get up at an hour earlier than the other guys, because, you know, when Kentucky plays a game on the road, it is typically the biggest game of the year for that opponent. And that's a lot of pressure. The coaching staff, the players, it's tremendous pressure. The fans feel it. Okay. Give me a report card, A, B, C, D, or F on John Calipari, current state of the Kentucky program. I know they went in and WWE style curb stomped Tennessee last week in Knoxville. And everybody was like, what happened? But anyway, give me your report card on Kentucky, because I know you, Woodward Reserve, and Knob Creek have strong opinions on Kentucky.
If it wasn't for Woodward Reserve, I don't think Kentucky fans can make it through the season this year. I would give them, a C. It's hard not to give anything above that, and I think a C is just average. I think when you compare them to like Michigan State or Duke or Carolina, they're a mediocre basketball team that's getting hot towards the end, and a large in part is that because they've had an experienced coach who's been there before. I got to ask the question today: if Kentucky wins out and they make it to the SEC championship, are they in? Answer is no, just because of who they've lost to, when they've lost to them, and they've also got 13, 14 losses by now. Kentucky's going to have to win the SEC tournament, just like Michigan State's going to have to win the Big Ten tournaments and make the NCAA tournament. Same thing with Duke. Duke's going to have to win the ACC because we're going to see a lot of teams steal some bids. I think right now, when you look at it, Belmont's a lock for the NCAA tournament, even if they don't win the OVC. Missouri Valley, Loyola Chicago's a lock, but you also got Missouri State and Drake that are right there that can steal some bids. Even if Loyola Chicago loses in the championship game in Missouri Valley, that's still going to be a bid that's stolen from a team like Duke, like Michigan State, like Kentucky. And I think when you start going down the pecking order, Kentucky's probably, 5, 6, 7 down. I would put Michigan State and Duke in over Kentucky right now, just based off overall resume. I mean, Kentucky went a whole, month and a half without winning a basketball game, and they lost, 12 straight, 13 straight. When you do that, it's hard to make the NCAA tournament. So right now, grade would be a C. Now Kentucky can come out, beat Florida, who's a lock for the NCAA tournament this weekend. And then they start gaining some momentum as they head down to Ole Miss, and then they got South Carolina to close out the season. They went out and they go to the SEC tournament, play, I think Thursday or Friday. Right now it's the 17th. So they play on Thursday, the SEC tournament, make it to Saturday, Sunday. I think Kentucky fans would be happy with that. And I think a lot of these guys will actually be back next year. So it's going to be really interesting to watch Kentucky down the stretch.
Hey, Mitch, I know you've got the MitchDavisShow.com. You're going to be back on with us tomorrow morning, 8 to 10 a.m. on Sports 56, 96.1, and the new FM 98.5 WHBQ for the Saturday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. edition of Sidelines. We're going to talk some more basketball. I'm just going to leave you with this, Mitch, and we're going to then have Justin Nguyen, the general manager, Red River Ford Toyota over here in Nguyen, Arkansas, join us in just a minute. But I want to tell you something. We've had a problem here. It started with Billy McCaffrey and Fournette and a few players 5 years ago opting out, quitting on their teams and not playing in the football in the bowl games. What I'm concerned about, folks, watch out for guys opting out / quitting on their teams because they don't get a high enough seed in the NCAA tournament, or they draw a seed that their handlers don't like. We better watch this stuff. If it starts happening, it'll blow up in the faces of the people that do. And I'm telling you, Gordon Ford and Jimmy says it. We all do. The kids today, so many of them are sold on talent, not because they're great basketball players. That is going to catch up. And you know what? You better have fundamentals, because Memphis blew a national championship 08 against Kansas. 9-point lead, 2 minutes left, couldn't hit free throws. Everybody said it would catch up with them, and it did. But we'll talk about this tomorrow, Mitch. Guys, sitting out. Duke had a player a few weeks ago do it, and it just needs to be called out for what it is. They're quitting. They're selfish. They're narcissistic little brats when they pull this stuff, okay? Mitch, tell people real quick again about your show.
Yeah, the MitchDavisShow.com. We're going to have we had Jay Billis on Thursday, and then we had Neil McCready on today from RebelGrove.com. Talk all things SEC basketball, Ole Miss baseball, and then of course we're going to have a Memphis baseball recap up sometime this weekend. Right now they're leading 6-5, heading into the 7th inning, so hopefully they can carry out this win after getting a win on Tuesday night against Clemson to start their season with a W.
Hey, Mitch, always you always bring great information to the show. You work harder than a dozen rented mules. That's what we love having you on here. MitchDavisShow.com. Check out that podcast. He just talked with Jay Billis, knows a thing or two about basketball. And by the way, he was one of the stars of that great documentary ESPN did. And Jimmy and I were talking about this on ACC Network. It's an ESPN film, the class that saved Coach K. So, Mitch, we'll talk to you in the morning.
Looking forward to it, guys. Take care.
Okay. Hey, joining us right now, Justin Nguyen is the general manager at Red River Ford Toyota over here in Nguyen, Arkansas. It's about 45 minutes from Memphis. Okay, let's talk about it. New ownership group took over October 5th. John Dobbs Jr. and the Ward family, they've been in Central Arkansas in the car and truck business for a long time, Justin says. And we know the Dobbs name in Memphis in the Mid-South. You're not going to get two groups like that to come together unless 1 and 1 equals 3. It's a great move in business. Justin, people will say, hey, the group that was here before wouldn't deal with you. And everyone always wants a good deal. Of course they do. Nobody wants a bad deal. Talk about how you're dealing and working with people since you and your team have taken over here at Red River Ford Toyota in Nguyen, Arkansas.
Well, Rob, the previous ownership was just ready to retire and move on with something new in his life. And so by doing that, you get a little disinterested in what you're doing. But we're brand new here, and we want everybody to know that we want an opportunity to earn your business. If you hadn't been able to deal here in the past, I challenge you to come by and try to tell me that again now. I get that often, and I tell you, I'm telling people, I'm changing people's minds every single day.
You know, and also right now, somebody has a trade-in. Doesn't matter what it is. You talk about the prices are the best you've seen in the 20 years that you've been in the car business. And that's because, bottom line, inventories went way down because of the virus. A lot of production was shut down. We had the snow here last week. We had 3 snow and ice storms in 8 days. You had a tractor out here with a front-end loader, a scooper, 15, 18, 20-foot piles of snow out here. This is Nguyen, Arkansas. Hey, it's all cleared up right now, and everything is a go. If a person is right now, let's talk about the Fords here in the first hour. You're looking at the F-150s, the F-250s. You've got great Ford Expedition. You got the new Bronco coming in here. You even talked last week about an electric Ford F-150, which for 42 straight years has been the number one selling pickup truck in America. Again, that ain't by accident.
No, it's not, Robin. That's because Ford really pays attention to what they're doing, and they have a care for what happens here in America. I don't know if you've seen their national television ads lately, but it really instills that American pride back into our society we're missing a lot right now. Yeah. And the snow is all gone, and if you need a deal on a vehicle, we're into the last day and a half of this month. And because of the snow that we had last week, we're behind the 8 ball, and we're trying to make up. And so if you've been looking for a deal with the way trade-in values are right now, there is absolutely no reason why you don't give me a call and give me an opportunity. I promise I'll make it worth it.
All right, person right now on a Friday afternoon, they're going to be going home from work. Y'all will work tonight till about 6 or until the last sale's done, but you'll be back up here in the morning at 9 o'clock. Go to the website on our Sidelines.live website. It's RedRiverFordToyota.com. You can start the process, get all the I's dotted, the T's crossed, and everything underlined, and it can take you 15, 20 minutes once you come in here because of the internet. It's a convenience. You're not going to be here for half a day. You don't have to camp out. So the Fords we're talking about, the next hour we're going to talk about the Toyotas. And again, you just pulled up in that great looking big black Toyota Tundra pickup truck with the 35-inch tires, the biggest back seat of any pickup truck that I have seen. And also your service department, Austin Futrell and the group will be back there tomorrow on Saturday until noon. And one other thing, I did have a friend of mine say something about if I buy a car or truck from over there in Nguyen and I live in Memphis, where am I going to go for service? It doesn't matter, does it?
It doesn't matter. When you buy a new vehicle, that vehicle is serviceable at any dealership nationwide. So if you buy a new Ford from me, you don't have to make that drive back over here just to get your service. You can just take it to your local Ford dealer. If you buy a new Toyota from me, you don't have to make the drive back over here. You take it to your local Toyota dealer. Now, I would love the opportunity for you to come back and to check out my service department because they are great back there, but you don't have to. And to talk about getting the process done online, that just happened. The lady had been shopping us and shopping around online. She came from the other side of Little Rock. I mean, she drove 2 hours to come up here, was here about 10 minutes, picked up her new Highlander and rode on home.
Look, I saw him when I came in here. He's not making this up, people. This is the way they work. Red River Ford Toyota in Nguyen, Arkansas. They're going to be open tonight till 6. Again, Saturday morning, 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. They are open again Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Everybody here is on the same page. They're going to try to help you with selecting a car, truck, or SUV. RedRiverFordToyota.com on the website. Hey, let's do this, Audrey. Let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Richmond Weaver, Rich Take on Sports. Got Jimmy Hodge here with us, talking a lot of basketball, football, recruiting. Be with you till 5 p.m. Central. Sidelines.live. Jimmy, I'll be right back with you, okay?
Hey.
Okay, be right back with you. Hold on. Hey, Justin. Richmond. Okay, hold on. Okay. Oh, okay. Yes, yeah, hopefully. Okay. Richmond's going to be calling in right coming out of the break. Okay. I'll call him now. Hey.
Hello, sir.
Okay. Yeah, it's Rob. Yeah, we're in a commercial break, so I'm going to merge you in here with Jimmy Hodge and keep you on here for about 15 minutes or so. I know you're busy, so hang on here.
No, it's perfect.
Okay,
yes, sir.
Hey, Jimmy, got Richmond Weaver on here with us, and it's Rich Take on Sports. And so, yeah, we'll talk, Clemson, ACC, and then South Carolina. Richmond, you do cover South Carolina. I mean, I'm sure you know what's going on. Obviously, they're not out from under the shadow, the giant orange and purple shadow of Clemson.
Yeah. No, we have to at least try to balance a little bit of the Gamecock story. So yes, I've got a good handle on some things for them.
Okay. So perfect. Okay. How much longer, Audrey? A minute and a half. Okay. Yeah. Because
Perfect.
I've tried, Richmond, I've tried to find somebody to cover, and I've told Jimmy this, South Carolina, and you look on Columbia at all these sports stations, and there's Phil Kornbluth, and they've been doing it like 38 years or whatever. I'm always looking for the guy that thinks outside the box. And just when we met you last October, over with Vince at Melt, I was like, all right, this guy, and I know you cover Clemson. And I was like, I thought about it today. I was like, I wonder if he ever, has a.
Oh yeah. I could help you on that.
Perfect.
Sure.
Okay. So I don't need anybody because as confident as you are on Clemson, I know you will be fair. I mean, that's the main thing. How many podcasts are you doing a week?
I only release mine every 2 weeks. So,
okay.
But I'm recording. I like, cause mine are like evergreen type things.
Yeah.
But I'm doing a radio show for Clemson pregame basketball and was doing it for Clemson pregame football.
Okay.
So I am doing basketball shows, 2 or 3 times a week.
Okay. Are you part of the Clemson radio network?
No, not. I have done some, but I'm not. I'm like the fill-in guy.
Okay, I got
but
you.
I'm part
10
of the
10
affiliate
seconds. Okay.
network.
10 seconds. Okay, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Rob Brown back here with you. The Friday afternoon edition, www.sidelines.live. We're broadcasting from Red River Ford Toyota in Nguyen, Arkansas. And Jimmy Hodge on here with us from up in Knoxville. We had Mitch Davis of the MitchDavisShow.com on with us. And by the way, check out his podcast with Jay Billis a couple of days ago. Ought to be very timely for college basketball. And Bill Cameron from ESPN Radio, 106.7 The Drive in Auburn. So a lot going on. Rich Take on Sports from Greenville in the upstate covers Clemson, the ACC, also on South Carolina. Let's talk right now. Give us Clemson update, ACC basketball, kind of a strange year. Anytime that North Carolina and Duke are not among the best teams. But look, what's the statistic that is floating around? The 13 winningest programs in college basketball history. I don't think any of them are currently ranked in the top 25, but Clemson's also making a push. And bring us up to speed on that, and then we'll get into talking a little bit about Shane Beamer in South Carolina.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing right now is for Clemson, they were able to showcase that what they went through the first time they had a COVID pause and came back after a nice 5-game winning streak and hit the wall, so to speak, and went on a real horrible 3-game losing streak, just getting blown out. But they were able to learn some things after that COVID pause, coming back on Wednesday and handling Wake Forest on the road very easily, and had a great defensive performance. And that was one of the things you wanted to look at to see how Clemson would perform coming off of a 12-day COVID pause. And now they didn't shoot the ball really well. So offensively, there was the rust, but what we didn't see was the rust on the defensive side. Now, I know Wake Forest is not a high-power scoring offense, but you could see a totally different type of Clemson team defensively, holding Wake Forest to 15 points in the first half. I don't care how bad the team is. When you only score 15 points as a Power 5 team, that just showcases that Clemson was able to, at will, put some defensive pressure on them. And so I thought it was a great opportunity for Clemson to really put themselves in a nice position to – now they're 5th in the ACC, and they have a chance based on their schedule right now, how it lines up. They've got Miami at home tomorrow, and then on the road at Syracuse, and then wind things up next Saturday against Pittsburgh. So those are 3 winnable games, and really 2 of them for sure at home. Playing at Syracuse is always tough, but if Clemson can do that, and they're sitting right now at 8-5 in the ACC, and could finish, say, get all 3 of those wins at 11-5, then all of a sudden now Clemson has a legitimate shot of finishing in the top 4 of the ACC. And that's the most important thing, because that gets you the double bye in the ACC tournament and automatically puts you in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and obviously doing well in the ACC tournament for a school like Clemson is a must. Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville, you made the point, we had Richmond on a couple of weeks ago, about sticking with a coach, Bardwell, for 10 years. It can pay off. Look what Coach K endured early on, and Dean Smith, Frank Beamer, Virginia Tech ACC football coach, was there forever, came in 1987 till about 7 years ago. His early years were not so pretty, but it is something worth doing, and I think most schools are real quick to pull the trigger. But let's talk some ACC basketball. Jimmy, come on in here.
Yeah, I think Clemson's in really good shape. I think the point Richmond was making in regard to that win at Wake Forest was, in past years, that was exactly the type of game that Clemson would lose. And this time around they handled the game, handled Wake with ease, and considering these 3 games down the stretch, I mean, I with the possible exception of Syracuse, when you play up there and you get a guy like Boeheim that can get on a hot streak and hit some threes, and it can spark similar performances from his teammates, they can be a problem to win up there. But yeah, Miami and Pitt, I mean, they absolutely ought to win those games. And of course, in their non-conference schedule, the win over Alabama, combined with the way they played in the ACC regular season. I mean, there's no question Clemson's in the tournament, but just talking about the ACC in general, when you're talking about that regular season finale against Pitt, have you heard anything on what the deal was with Pittsburgh's two leading scorers leaving the team within 2 days of each other? I mean, are things just falling apart under cable?
That's a very good question, and I haven't been able to get the true story behind that, and I don't know if we ever will right at this moment, obviously, but there is something going on there for two guys, and especially what I was most surprised was Xavier Johnson leaving, and I felt that he was the guy that with Champagny that would be able to continue have Pitt climbing, which I thought a few weeks ago that Pitt was going to be a team that was going to be very dangerous here at the end of the season, and especially heading into the ACC tournament, because they had that guy with Champagny that they could ride throughout the tournament. And you know how important it is. Sometimes you have one guy that gets going, and Champagny is the type of guy that could do that Pitt could be a real tough team. But now I backtrack that completely because they just seem to be in shambles, and something is definitely going on. I mean, you don't have two guys leaving like that, especially at this point of the season. And I know this is a COVID season. This is a crazy season and all of that. And there's a little bit go ahead and making a decision to leave because they have the ability to play immediately next year based on the ruling of the NCAA, allowing them, that this is a redshirt year for everybody, basically. But still, to leave before the season is over, that's odd. So I'm still trying to get my inside sources to give me some scoop on that. But I do know Kansas is involved with talking to some of those guys. I do know that 100%. So watch out for Bill Self. He's not afraid to go grab some players.
Oh, that's typical Kansas stuff right there. I mean, he is the ultimate under the radar guy in every aspect of recruiting, whether it's high school players, JC guys, Euros, African players. I mean, this guy, I've never seen anything like it. And I forgot. I was just thinking those guys. I thought I forgot about Champagny because obviously he averages about 20 a game. Yeah. But then when you lose, though, two players that give you 28, 29 points a game, I mean, that's just devastating. And it just seemed absolutely bizarre. And, up until this year, I mean, he took over a very difficult job. I mean, because Kevin Stallings, man, all he did was just cash checks for 3 years,
That's right.
I mean, just went completely through the motions. And the only reason he got that job was because the head of the search committee that Vandy hired happened to be, lo and behold, Todd Turner, the Vandy athletic director who hired Kevin Stallings at Vandy. And so he just falls into that Pitt job. He should have given Todd Turner half of the $10 million he got out of the buyout.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, unbelievable. So it's not an easy situation, but at the same time, though, Capel's been a head coach long enough, and especially from his time at Oklahoma, that he seemed to, would and being around Coach K as long as has as a player and a coach, should have been able to handle that situation well enough to at least get through the season, and then have all this stuff happen in the off season, and then try to fix things, when nobody's paying attention, during the late spring and summer months.
Yeah.
Well, and you see some other scenarios where programs are in, similar situations, but for not having two guys leave. But you can look at Miami, where Matt Cross, he decides to transfer, and now he's going to Louisville. And it's crazy that just a few weeks ago, he helped Miami beat Louisville, and now he's going to be playing for Louisville. But you can see a different scenario, though. Miami is in the bottom of the ACC. I mean, they've had so many key injuries. They're not even a team that is relatively competitive anymore in the ACC. So I understand that scenario a little bit better. But the Pitt scenario, it blows my mind how that has transpired.
Hey,
yeah, when you look at that, Richmond, when you talk about all the stuff Miami's gone through, yet 3 weeks ago, Miami missing 3 or 4 key players. They beat Duke. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. None.
Well, I also think there's an aspect of, I know there's been a lot of talk about, and Jim Boeheim was in the middle of that with Jay Billis in reference to Jalen Johnson deciding to opt out, and what type of effect that was going to have on not only Jalen Johnson as a player, but on Duke. And I don't care how you slice it, dice it, whatever you want to call it, Duke is a different team without Jalen Johnson. And the proof is in the pudding, how they've been able to play. I don't know what it is in terms of some type of chemistry inside the locker room. I don't know any of the dynamics behind that, but it doesn't take a rocket science to see that Duke plays better without Jalen Johnson right now. And it's not saying that Jalen Johnson was a cancer. I'm just telling you, I can see offensively and defensively, they're playing better without him out on the court.
It's the classic example, if you wanted to redefine it in the dictionary, of addition by subtraction.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to say this too. You talk about him opting out. He quit on his team is what he did. And Richmond, I brought this up with Mitch Davis and Jimmy right before you came on. And we're going to go a little bit long because I just got a text from Jake Crane was going to be on with us right here at 4. We're going to push him back later in the show because he had something emergency come up, but we're going to get you on together with Jake. We love all this just going around the round table. Look, I'm concerned. 5 years ago when McCaffrey did it, when he was playing for Stanford, I'm going to not play in the bowl game. Leonard Fournette, a few other players have done it. And I'm concerned now we're going to start to see this year in the NCAA tournament. Guys just quitting, opting out. That's a nice term. They're quitting. They're selfish. They've got all these handlers telling them what to do. That's what AAU basketball. Look, AAU basketball can be really good. It can be competitive, but it is also crazy, the politics and these handlers, 15, 20 people just sucking the life out of you. Do you think we're going to see that? Because you're right. Jimmy's right. It's addition by subtraction. If you've got a guy, and it was, I bet you, I'm not in that locker room. I don't have any access to it, but I would be willing to bet you a sack full of crystals with or without cheese and onions. That's your call. I'll be willing to bet you that he was just making subtle inferences in his body language or whatever, that he was checking out, and the team probably was relieved when he did. It's like Jake Crane said the other day, the transfer portal. There's some guys that when they announced they were going into the portal, we were jumping up and down, doing backflips and high-fiving each other, going, woo, got rid of that one. So what do you think?
Well, I can go ahead and tell you one thing for certain. I'm going to take those crystals without cheese. So that's my favorite.
By the way, y'all still have crystals in the upstate, don't you?
I haven't thought about crystals in a long time, my friend. So now you made me hungry.
Oh, there's nothing better than a sack full of crystals and a case of Ham's beer. Hard to beat that. Yeah.
Yeah. Gut grenades and chili at 3 a.m.
Yeah. A bowl of mud, some shrapnel, and a box of fuses, the French fries. It's wild.
Yeah. Hey, Richmond, I got to tell you though, when I saw Coach K's statement of how, yeah, we really understand Jalen's decision and we wish him all the best. That's not the biggest crock of crap I've ever heard. And yeah, he wasn't about to endanger his future chances with other similarly highly projected prospects that didn't pan out. But okay, this one didn't work, but I'm not going to damage my chances with any future guys that everybody thinks are going to be great, but there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
Well, that's Coach K. He's evolved over the years, and I commend him for actually being able to evolve and look at opportunities for one and dones. But now, you can obviously see it's not always a bed of roses with one and dones. There is a negative side to it, and some of that's being flushed out in a season like this. I was really surprised, though, in all honesty, why even put yourself in the position of the scrutiny by clarifying and saying that you're opting out? Why didn't they just say he's not going to play because this foot injury and leave it at that? You didn't have to say I'm opting out to be ready for the NBA draft or any of that. And that's where I look at Coach K and say, did you get overruled by somebody from a handler or, a parents or future agent, whatever, to be able to have that type of communication out there? Because I think that's just a complete miss on Duke basketball, Coach K, communications, just in general, that they would put that out there, because you could have easily just leaned on the foot injury and been done with that. And there might have been some rumblings and speculations, but nothing like it would be as it is now, with everybody saying that Jalen Johnson is a quitter.
Yeah. See, these kids need to be called out on doing this, because that's what they're doing. And somehow the national media has made it almost like it's a religious epiphany these guys are having. Oh, he's going to opt out of the bowl game, or he's going to opt out of the season. Don't give me that crap. I mean, I was born in the afternoon, but not this afternoon. Okay. And people need to go after these people. I love Coach K, huge fan of his. And by the way, Jimmy and I both, I'm going to ask you this. We were talking last week, before I lost the internet a week ago, Tuesday. Still don't have it. Still waiting for that FedEx package to get here, guys. So we've been watching a lot of reruns of the Beverly Hillbillies, and doggy, one of these days I'm going to have a long talk with that boy, Jethro. With a brain like that, we need to protect it. Anyway, but I want to say this, the ACC network, that morning show, and Jimmy's right. I mean, with Packer and Durham, it's fantastic. And I love watching that ACC network, because there's so much. It's the SEC, ACC. It's really, really good stuff. But that documentary, The Class That Saved Coach K, is fantastic. But Packer, he's so good, and so is Durham. They're so good at knowing. I like Packer as my favorite. Do you have a chance ever to interact with them, have them on your show? And could you ever get them on Sidelines.live with us? Because we'd love to have them. I'll give you about 240 crystals if you want them, and 2 cases of Ham's beer. Shameless plug here from Ed McMahon on the Tonight Show.
Yes, I can definitely work on that. I've been fortunate enough to be able to spend time with both of those guys, and had both of them on my podcast, Risk Take on Sports. Good. And they're absolutely fantastic. So I can definitely reach out to them, because I know they enjoy talking sports, and they enjoy just being able to, have interaction with people, about this. That's their passion. So I can definitely try to reach out to them. And I agree with you. I think they're two of the best out there. And I'm not saying that just because they've been on my podcast, and not saying it just because Mark Packer is a Clemson grad like me. I'm just saying I watch enough talking heads in sports, and they do it really well. And I give a lot of kudos to the ACC network for putting that show together. And especially when you look at how it's literally from Mark Packer's basement. Yeah. That's where they're broadcasting from. And I love that uniqueness about it.
Oh, I love the dog that comes out there and gets the biscuits in the morning show.
Hey, listen, during football season, when they have Luganville on Tuesday morning with his Captain America wrestling robe, it's the most awesome thing you've ever seen in your life, And one of the greatest things I ever saw was the first time he made the appearance since ESPN had built that studio in Packer's basement. To see the cringe look on Wes Durham's face when Luganville came out in that Captain America robe with the optional mask was priceless. Yeah, absolutely priceless, man. That should be. In fact, he shouldn't be allowed to ever come on their show again without wearing the Captain America robe. I mean, it was just absolutely awesome. But by the way, talking about football real quick, Richmond, what was the expectation today on the Ty Simpson announcement, 50-50. Everybody thought 2 weeks ago it was probably 100% Clemson. Then the word was out that Bama was gaining ground. What was the thought process on the Clemson side? Were they surprised, or was it just, hey, it just happens in recruiting? It's going to be one of those 50-50 deals.
Yeah, I think inside they knew what was happening, that they were losing ground. But for Clemson faithful, the fan base, they felt very confident. And so this was a little bit of surprise, because he was supposed to be the next guy up, that he would take over once DJ Uiagalelei was done. And so I think there is a sense of disappointment, and obviously for Clemson fans, frustration, because it's Bama. And I know that, we've had our battles with Bama, but this is just another battle now on the recruiting side. And this is really one of the first ones that you can look at head to head for a big time guy. You can say Justin Ross, but I think early on Justin Ross was leaning towards Clemson anyway. From that perspective, and we thought that was going to be the same thing with Ty here. But there's definitely some disappointment on the Clemson side that this is not going to play out. But there still is the sense of, hey, anything is possible. You never know. Maybe he'll rethink and come back to the promised land up here in the upstate of South Carolina.
Hey,
well, not like they're in bad shape with the Big Ocho. I mean, he's going to have a big career if he stays at least, it's 2 more years and maybe even 3. But I think, in that Notre Dame game, I mean, he showed he has all the tools it takes to be a really good college quarterback.
Well, I just want to know if anyone can say his name really fast 5 times in a row without screwing up. And number 2, I can't wait for some of these folks coming up from Orangeburg and Bamberg and Aiken going, listen, I tell you right now, that quarterback we got,
They don't even try.
Hey,
Rob.
I'll never
say it's DJU.
I was in the bookstore one time at Auburn, and these guys were talking, and the guy said, listen, I listen on radio. I listen to that Paul Finnebaum. He's pretty good now. Finnebaum. I'm like, well, Paul actually went to my high school, Christian Brothers High School in Memphis, and left after his sophomore year after his father died. And he graduated from White Station High School. So he's a Spartan, as is fellow SEC Network basketball analyst and Tennessee alum, Bruce Pearl player, Dane Bradshaw. Both of them are Spartans, and that's White Station High School. I mean, put out a lot of really talented people. Let's do this. Let's talk now. This is great stuff. This is Richmond Weaver, does a sports radio, pregame, football, basketball, Clemson. Their fan base, just unbelievable. And again,
it's Clemson centric.
Yeah, Clemson centric. But the upstate, the low country stew, by the way, at the quarter deck in Hilton Head. Man, that is so good. I'm just salivating thinking about it. But love it over there in South Carolina. And by the way, that view at Clemson's stadium is spectacular, of just the surroundings. And they have a culture that is unique. They've got the football-only facility that everybody in the country is trying to replicate. And then there's schools like Auburn that waited so long. It's going to cost them more, but thank God for Tigers Unlimited, the team behind the team at Auburn. They pay $17-18 million every year in May, which covers almost 600 student-athlete scholarships. Let's talk about this now. South Carolina, across the state, the big shadow of the orange and purple, the Clemson Tigers. It's getting bigger by the day. Dabo isn't even thinking about slowing down. He's young, he's hungry, and he's on a mission from God. Shane Beamer, he was at South Carolina when Steve Spurrier was there. Gamecocks 2011, 12, and 13, won 11 games, 3 straight years. Of course, they had Jadeveon Clowney from Rock Hill, South Carolina. Marcus Lattimore had some really good players, Garcia, but they can't get it together. And let's look at the history. They've been playing football since 1892 at the University of South Carolina at Columbia. One championship, Richmond. 1969, they were 7-4 in the ACC. I mean, that's like saying you're the tallest midget in the room. Who cares? I mean, 7-4. Look what Clemson's doing right now. Clemson loses about as often as the president of the United States goes a day or two without being criticized by half the country. I mean, it's unreal what they've done. Go back 7-8 years ago, Jimmy Richmond, you remember that? They're Clemsoning. Dabo's like, excuse me, what did you say? Now Clemson is the standard in college football, along with Alabama. And I know Ohio State, heck of a program, but Clemson and Alabama, it's unbelievable what's going on there.
Yeah, oh, and by the way, I meant to refer to the big kid from California as the big Cinco, not the big Ocho. Sorry about that. I hate to get a player. I hate to get the wrong number of a player of that caliber. I apologize for that. But talking about South Carolina, Richmond, I really wanted. Well, no. Before I even get to them, I want to ask you. Have you had a chance to go down the water slide yet at the football facility there?
Yeah, no, it's not a water slide, but it is a slide, and I have been down it. Yes.
Okay, is it pretty good?
Yes,
okay.
It's there's a replica of where the players run down the hill. That's obviously the most.
Oh, that's awesome! Yeah,
the most exciting 25 seconds in college football. But there's a replica of that hill inside the football facility, and then right beside that, where you can run down the hill or walk down it, there is a slide right there, and you do have to be careful because it can right there at the bottom if you're not prepared. I've seen some people don't land on their feet. They're right on.
And it's ugly.
Yes, it is ugly.
Talking about South Carolina, I know they've had a really unusual situation because after Beamer he thought he had filled out his staff. A couple of his coaches got offers to go elsewhere and did so. I mean, man, what kind of disruption does that cause when you think you're all ready to go to start this big rebuild, and then boom, you got to start. You still got another 2 or 3 weeks or month to again try to spend time filling out your coaching staff that you thought was already done, and you're losing another month.
Well, and that's why I think it's going to be imperative that we look at what Beamer has done. He at least he's been able to label himself as a recruiter. I mean, I know, when he was at South Carolina and he was trying to do a lot of the heavy lifting out on the recruiting trail, and I think that paid dividends, to a certain degree. And that's not just because he still has an 843 area code, in Charleston. I really believe that he actually was doing a lot of good things. And so now he's having to focus not necessarily recruiting players. He's got to recruit assistant coaches, because I don't care what situation you're in. If you don't have the right people in place as far as filling out your staff, you're going to struggle. You can look at Dabo Swinney 100%. When he first took over, he gave the offensive coordinator position to a young Billy Napier. Now we look at Billy Napier down at Louisiana Tech, and now it's a different Billy Napier than when he took over as offensive coordinator, and he was in over his head. And it took Dabo his loyalty to be really tested, because he had to fire Billy Napier, and that's where he brought in Chad Morris, and you could see things changing. And then when Dabo was able to recruit Brent Venables, now it was also, it helped that the Stoops family made some poor decisions at Oklahoma and not recognizing what they had with Venables on the defensive coordinator side. But you can see how important it is to have the right pieces in place for your assistant coaches, and especially in the coordinator position. So it's going to be interesting to see, what Beamer is able to do with some hiccups like that. But in all reality, I actually think it's a good hire for South Carolina. I really do. I think he's got a unique resume. I mean, he's been on staffs with Philip Fulmer, Sylvester Croom, Spurrier. I mean, his dad, Kirby Smart, Lincoln Riley. I mean, that's not a bad list. I mean, he's coached cornerbacks, linebackers, special teams, tight ends, running backs, and in 3 different Power 5 conferences. And he's really spent a lot of that time on the offensive side. And we know that's completely different than what Muschamp was. And in Muschamp because we know he's a defensive guy. But South Carolina needs to be able to actually do something on the offensive side. So I think it's actually a nice opportunity for Beamer to come in, and it's going to take him some time. But as long as they give him some time, I think there's an opportunity he could be successful.
Yeah, and I'm sorry,
No,
Rob.
go ahead.
I was just going to jump in real quick, Richmond. I think how important is it to, and I think this is just a big factor here that can help the situation greatly, and that Beamer sees South Carolina as a destination job, where a lot of other coaches might not. And hey, if I have a good year or two, hey, I'm going to try to really hit an elite heavyweight program, see if I can, land one of those plum spots.
Let me ask you this.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people don't look at South Carolina as that. And maybe that is an opportunity for Beamer to really do that at this time.
All right, here's the question I have for you. You look at, I'm going to throw a program out there that's really just fallen and gone on 180. In 2001 to 2009, that 9-year run, Texas football record, 101-16. And I was talking to Jimmy off the air before we came on the air today. The hit by Marcel Darius, big defensive lineman for Alabama, in the 2009 national championship game in the Rose Bowl against Texas. A Huffman High School graduate from Birmingham. When he hit Colt McCoy, it's like it was the emasculation on the national stage of Texas football. Every year since then, they've lost 4 or more games. Well, this past year, they only lost 3, but they only played 10 games, and I'll be willing to bet you a sack full that they would have lost 4 or more. That would have been really 11 straight years. With all the resources and the money they have, population close to 30 million that we know of, supposedly the number 1 recruiting in the country in terms of high school football talent, Florida, California. Of course, that California talent is shifting. It's going all over the country. People are leaving, kind of like back in the 1930s. Remember John Steinbeck's great book, The Grapes of Wrath? People left from the Midwest, the Dust Bowl, and they went to California. Now they're coming back. They're coming into the South. It's really changing. Then you look at Clemson football. They had a long period after Danny Ford left, Ken Hatfield, Tommy Bowden, different coaches came in there. They were wandering in the wilderness, and now they're on fire. It's amazing to me, but it's not by accident that a football program can go from being dominant alpha male to a soft, kindred little beta spirit real fast. What's Clemson doing to protect against that?
I'll try to answer that as best I can.
I know that was a crazy question, but I'm thinking, how does that happen? Yeah.
Well, I think from what I've been able to see from an outside perspective, and then even fortunately getting an inside view kind of behind the curtain and getting to know Dabo a little bit and the coaching staff and even what they're doing in auxiliary departments within the football facility itself, is that it's not about wins and losses. It's about the culture. And it's about that culture, that foundation, and the wins. That's just a byproduct of the culture. So I think when you are able to build a foundation and focus on that foundation and recruiting the players that fit within that culture and foundation, and oh, by the way, it's great when they're 5 stars, but you're even able to bring in some guys that are 2 or 3 stars and elevate them to another level, because the culture that you have built and the standards that you're setting, you can develop those players. And a prime example is Grady Jarrett. Look at how he has just been put on a pedestal in terms of now as a 2-time Pro Bowler for the Atlanta Falcons. And he was a 3-star at best recruit coming into Clemson. And so when you can do those type of things, you're going to continue to be able to be in contention with the 5 stars that are out there, like a Ty Simpson. You might not get them all, but you've got the culture that you've built that can withstand the cyclical things that happen in sports. And Clemson's not always going to be, there playing in the college football playoff. It's just not the reality. And obviously all Clemson fans hope that that's the case, but the law of averages have to, at some point, shift a little bit because of key injuries or, something happens, the crazy world of sports and college football the way it is. But when you have the ability to build the foundation and the culture that Dabo has, and that's your focal point, then you can withstand some of those down type of scenarios.
Yeah, and that's true because look at Southern Cal, 1982 to 2002, 20-year period, only one 10-win season in that 20-year period. Look at Oklahoma after Barry Switzer left. Man, you had Blake was out there. Howard Snellenberger was there briefly. Captain Kangaroo did not do well out there, and he done very well
Gary
building
Gibbs.
the program. Yeah, Gibbs, not Barry Gibbs or Andy Gibbs, was it? Gary Gibbs, that's right. Yes. Oh yeah, staying alive. But he did not stay alive. He didn't do well there. But isn't it amazing? And Jimmy and I in Richmond, you're like us. We love to talk about the history, but it means so much, history and tradition, because if you're ever in doubt, you go back and you look, and especially, and I'm going to use like I said, we're here in Arkansas right now. A lot of Razorback fans here. You think about great tradition there. Sam Pittman's over there. He's reconnecting with the Arkansas tradition. He's not just there to get a paycheck. And that Clemson culture, the Alabama culture, whether it's Auburn, Georgia Tech, Florida, South Carolina, the Spurrier years were the best. Lou Holtz did some good things. You go back to, Carlin, and you think about, back when 1984, until Spurrier did it, they'd only had one double-digit win season in their school history. That was 1984 when South Carolina was 10-2. Look in the last 5 years, as Clemson lost 5-6 games total. And, the only easy day was yesterday. And if Clemson were to suddenly change things and get lazy, somebody's going to get them. I mean, life on top, whether you're Alabama or Clemson or Ohio State, is again like, a wildebeest calf. If they can't run within 3 minutes of being born, they're going to be a snack, lunch, dinner, something for somebody else. So it's just amazing to me to look. And look, Richmond, we've kept you longer than we meant to, but you were so good. Love having you on here. Tell people real quick, and we want to get you back on with us again this Sunday afternoon. You'll be on the Sunday afternoon wrap-up show. Tell people how they can follow you, your show, your podcast. You are damn good, and you're a credit to your profession. And tell people real quick how they can follow you, and also maybe who influenced you along the way to help you get where you are, and who do you go to as your source of inspiration? The former voice of the Clemson Tigers. Who is it? Brent Musburger, Harry Carey. Cubs win, Clemson wins. My God, a freshman. My God, a freshman. Those thighs. Herschel Walker. Who is it?
Well, I do appreciate it. Yes. And anybody can find the podcast on any podcasting platform, Rich Take on Sports. You can go to richtakeonsports.com. Also follow me on Twitter at Richmond Weaver. And for me, I've always been a sports guy, and basketball has always been my passion. And, I was able to coach college basketball for a few years, and life transitioned me into another profession in medical device sales, but I have gravitated back towards sports. And really, for me, I had become a podcast consumer. Colin Cowherd was a guy that I had listened to on the radio, and then obviously, a Mark Packer was a big influence as well, and even the Wes Durham, just because of the regionally being based here and being local. And so those are kind of the guys that, I try to look at, that, they're not the, shock jock type of guys, but want to get into good conversations and not afraid to share their opinion. And it might not be necessarily the right in terms of predictions, but they're, are able just to get into a conversation about the wonderful world of sports and just what it means, and how a lot of people like gravitating towards it. And so that's why I enjoy the opportunity to do this. And I would have to say the pivotal moment in terms of actually starting the podcast was when Clemson won the national championship in 2017, for that 2016 season, and just realizing that anything is possible. I didn't have any experience doing any podcasts, but if Clemson can win a national championship, then why can't I start a podcast? Because I'll go and tell you, first and foremost, and a lot of other Clemson faithful out there, we didn't think it was ever going to be possible that Clemson could win another national championship from that 81 season. So it was a special moment, and it's led me to doing that. And now here we are in 2021, and I'm on with you guys. So I'm enjoying it.
Hey, look,
Hey, Richmond, did Clemson give that NC State kicker a championship ring?
Oh, you better believe it. They tried to ask him his size, but NC State wouldn't allow them to get out.
Oh man, that was unbelievable. And by the way, speaking of
honestly,
go ahead.
Hey,
Jimmy.
Richmond, I think Barney Fife could have had first and goal at the Clemson 6 and at least ended up with no longer than a 20-yard field goal attempt to win the game.
Yeah.
I was at that game, and it was magical, obviously, to see that. And I would have to say that was – now, this was before the Pittsburgh loss.
Yes,
so
which would have completely knocked them out.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So, but I remember after that kick and miss, and then we have the interception, there to end the game. But I remember talking to friends and saying, I think this is a magical season. This is crazy. And when you look back, it was an absolutely storybook type of season. It's almost like a movie, basically. And it's just a very special season for a lot of Clemson people.
And let me tell you what, Richmond, if you go back, talk to lifelong Clemson fans, who will ever forget 1984, Georgia and Clemson deadlocked late in the game, and Lauren Smith, Lauren, what do you got? Well, Georgia's going to have to kick the ball a long one up there to beat Clemson here, and this crowd is on the edge of their seats. All right, Lauren, that's enough. Quickly. Now Kevin Butler's going to come out, Redan High School, Stone Mountain, Georgia. Now they're going to ask him to kick it from 100,000 miles. Snap, kick.
Kevin Butler, yeah.
Kevin Butler did it.
Oh,
He had a
yeah.
long-time career. But that one right there hurt. But that one when the North Carolina State kicker missed it, everybody was like, holy cow, the governor just got through. He saved us from execution. But, hey, Richmond, thank you so much. We look forward to having you on again Sunday afternoon. And before we go to Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy podcast over in Atlanta, let's talk real quick with General Manager Justin Nguyen of Red River Ford Toyota here in Nguyen, Arkansas. And in the first hour, we talked a lot about what's going on the Ford side, but also how the dealership here will work with you. They will deal with you. Nothing is taken for granted. When you come in here, they're going to start from zero. This ownership group took over the Ward family, John Dobbs Jr. from Memphis, the Red River Auto Group team. They're here about making the experience positive for you. Again, you can get it started on the internet, redriverfordtoyota.com. Before you even come in here to get the process about buying a car, a truck, a new or used vehicle, whatever you're looking for, it's a great process. A lot of my friends have been coming over here. Jake Crane's on here with us. You just got the 2021 Toyota 4Runner with the whiteout package. I love it. I've never seen a mid-sized SUV like that with that much cargo room in the back. And, of course, it drives it's like floating on air. And, Justin, let's talk right now about the Toyota side. You pulled up this afternoon, and weather's a lot better than it had been. You're driving that Toyota Tundra with the 35-inch tires, the four-wheel drive off-road package. The back seat, guys, is as big as a lot of people's den. It's a big seat. You've got everything on that package, and the price is very reasonable compared to some of the competitors out there. But Toyota, hey, the 4Runner, the Highlander, the Land Cruiser, these are legendary vehicles. People hold on. I've never seen a vehicle, in my opinion, that people hold on to longer than a Toyota Land Cruiser. But let's talk about Toyota.
Well, you said it, Rob. You talk about legendary reliability. Nothing beats a Toyota. These things can run forever. And, it's kind of a catch-22 for me because I've got a service department back here that doesn't stay very busy. They're a great service department, but because of these Toyotas, they don't have a lot of work to do. And so it's kind of a catch-22 for me, but I'd rather my customers' vehicles be dependable and reliable and not have to be worked on all the time. And as far as the weather goes, I didn't even notice it in my Tundra. I just rolled on like it wasn't even sitting there.
Well, that's the bottom line. I mean, right now, you're looking out there, trucks coming in all the time with new inventory. Last year, when the pandemic was declared March 11th, a lot of things changed. Inventory really went way down. Ford, Toyota, you name the manufacturer. Ford seems like they're ahead. How was Toyota affected? Because right now, look out here on the lot. It's raining right now, but you're going to be open until 6 p.m., open again tomorrow, 9 to 6 p.m. That's another thing. Somebody can come in here, even take a virtual ride in the vehicle and see everything before they even get in here. So it's a lot. It's actually fun. You don't dread. It's not like going to, you're being audited. You're going in here to talk to somebody, and they're already ready when you walk in the door.
Well, it needs to be fun. Typically you don't spend this amount of money on anything other than your house. Your house and your vehicle is your most expensive purchases you make. And it should be fun. You should be excited about the vehicle you're getting. The virus did shut down, and, Toyota had an extra little bit of work to do because they have to come from Japan, a lot of the parts and things. A lot of the vehicles are manufactured here in the States, but a lot of the parts come from overseas. And because of the virus, there was a little bit of delay on that. And so, but they're firing back up, and we are getting trucks every day with new Toyotas on them. And you just can't beat the product. The Ford product is amazing. It's built for tough. It's American made. I mean, you can't say anything bad about the Ford product. But that Toyota side, I mean, they've been around a long time. They've become number one in the market share for a reason. It's because of that reliability. You don't have to worry about your Toyota.
Yeah, and you look at your service department open on Saturdays till noon. And people, again, we talked about this in the first hour, but I've had several people say, I'm interested in going over to Nguyen to Red River Ford Toyota, but if I buy a truck there, do I have to take it over there every time for service? That doesn't matter, does it?
No, it doesn't. You can take your vehicle to any manufacturer that you bought from. So if you buy a Toyota here and say you live there in Memphis, you can just take it to your Memphis dealer. If you live in South Little Rock, if you live in Central Arkansas, you just take it to your local dealer, and your warranty, all the service work, everything is good nationwide. And so you don't have to worry about trying to bring it back here, even though I would love the opportunity to show you what my service part can do for you.
Okay. Now, real quick, let's talk now about something else that's pretty important to you. I'm looking at him back in there, Arkansas Razorbacks. If it involves the Razorbacks, anything, football, basketball, baseball, you love the Hogs. This state, it's unbelievable. Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy podcast over in Atlanta. Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville right now. And let's talk real quick. Jake, give your thoughts, and then I'll throw it to you, Jimmy, on the Razorback basketball program in the second year under Eric Musselman. Jake, they're playing better than anybody in the league.
Yeah, well, first off, I'm going to say if you're anywhere near Red River and you don't go to them to try and get a vehicle, you're out of your mind. I did it personally. I would request Stacy. I think she's the best in the state. No offense, Justin. I know you're a great salesman too, but Stacy was unbelievable. But when I look at Arkansas basketball, this is something we talked about a couple weeks ago, and I said their biggest problem was they couldn't win if Desi Seals didn't play good or at least affect the game in a positive way. That has changed. I'm looking at guys like Justin Smith right now, who is really the glue guy of that team. They have multiple guys that can shoot, but it all goes back to Eric Musselman. And when I watch him on the court and I watch the way the guys react to him, you can tell that they love playing for him. And you watch Arkansas on defense, they're always active. They make points, but they're always active. They're driving on the floor. They're doing everything they can. And the attitude is a reflection of leadership. And Eric Musselman, to me, and I had Joe Lenart, Joey Brackets from ESPN. We're dropping that tomorrow. And he's as high on Arkansas as I am. And he was saying things like maybe it's a South Carolina run possible because they're getting hot at the right time. And if I'm in the NCAA tournament, I do not want to draw the Hogs right now because that Moody kid is a monster.
Yeah, Moses Moody is the absolute truth. And you talk about Justin Smith, Jake, and he's the glue, like you said, that holds our team together. We went through that stretch where he was injured, and it affected us. And now that he's back, he's making huge differences in these games.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, he does a little bit of everything. But again, Arkansas to me is good when the game is sped up. The transition they've made, because what do teams do when they play Arkansas and these fast teams? They try and slow you down. And what Arkansas has been able to do is say, all right, that's fine. We're going to run our sets. We're going to run our horn set from the top. We're going to run our backside picks. And they're hitting the shots they have to hit. But it's all going to come down to, in that NCAA tournament, you're going to have a game where you're not making shots. And that's when guys like Justin Smith come in handy. You can win a rock fight. You can beat them with defense and beat them from inside the perimeter. And that's how Arkansas is playing right now.
Hey, you can't go wrong with somebody named Justin. You know that already, Jack.
Hey, that's exactly right, man. Really, you're the glue guy. Don't lie.
Hey, let's do this. Hey, Justin Nguyen, general manager here at Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. Thanks so much. We're broadcasting live here. Remember, 45 minutes from Memphis. You're on I-40 going back and forth, Memphis to Little Rock. Either way, go north at the Far City exit, about 15 minutes. Red River Ford Toyota, half mile south of Highway 64 in Wynne, right there across from MJ Jordan's Exxon. You cannot miss it. Look, let's do this. Take a quick commercial break. Rob Brown here with you, Friday afternoon podcast, sidelines.live. And we'll be back with Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville, Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy podcast. A great show over in Atlanta, worldwide. We'll be with you again till 5 p.m. Central. And again, tomorrow morning, 8 to 10 a.m. Central, Sunday, 3 to 5 p.m. Central. Lots going on. We'll be right back. Sorry, I didn't have my headsets on. Hey. Yeah, didn't have my headsets on. I was like, sorry to blow y'all's eardrums. Can anybody hear me anymore?
Yeah.
Cow. Jake, you there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Man, I tell you, these headsets are so sharp. I mean, my ears, God, it's like when I get through, they're just ringing. Yeah, this is this is cool, Jake, because Jimmy Ott just said, "Can I come on at 5?" And then you said from 4 to 4:30. So we took Richmond. I mean, and covered a lot of stuff with him. And then now Jimmy's going to be back on in the morning at 8:30 because
me and Richmond hung out the other day in Atlanta, got some coffee.
Yeah, he's a cool guy, isn't he?
Oh yeah, Rich is great.
Yeah. And was he over there at Melt? I mean, or just he doesn't live in Atlanta.
No, he was doing something else. He just we have been talking and he said he was going to be in Atlanta, so we just kind of had an intro meeting and it was good. Yeah, we met him. Like I said, just met him back in October, and that I thought that was cool talking to the Dr. Martinez about Tiger's injuries. Oh man, hell, he's like shattered his leg. That'll be interesting. I mean, do they think he can? I listened to the podcast. The Masters is going to be, good Lord, less than 2 months, isn't it? Oh yeah, I mean he's just like Dr. Martinez said. I mean it's hard to call right now, but it's a devastating injury. Yeah, and I mean you look at a comminuted fracture, which is a term that I know now. Yeah, exactly. Had no idea what that meant 2 days ago, but I mean he broke it in 4 to 5 places, and half of them were sticking out of the skin. I mean, like the doctor said, you don't have to learn to walk again, but it's life changing. I don't think he's gonna play.
No, and you've got to worry about infection too when you got those type of open wounds like that. Yeah. Hey, Jake, did you know what I noticed? I heard that doctor said something that was really, really, it's true. Just from, you go back to Tua's injury and you think about Bo Jackson's injury, how quickly they got Tua to the, doctors, the surgery. He made the recovery. Bo, not so fast. The other one was they go down on the ground. If they do have a compound fracture, broken femur or whatever, and the dirt gets in there on the field, and that was really cool how he pointed out how quickly they scoop and run. They, the American military, I used to do stories at Fort Benning, 90 seconds or less, that helicopter's not even going to touch the ground. They're going to get you off the ground and medevac you out. In England or in Paris, when Princess Diana was killed in that car wreck, it took like an hour for them to get to her. In the middle of Paris, an hour. Yeah, well, that I don't know if that was an accident.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and
No,
it was at midnight too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and exactly. Hey, how much? Wait, how much? Let me come back. All right, 15 seconds. Stand by. Okay. Okay, Rob Brown back here with you. The Friday afternoon edition of Sidelines.live podcast, broadcasting from Red River Ford Toyota over here in Nguyen, Arkansas, and Jake Crane over in Atlanta, Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville. And hey, love talking about all this SEC basketball. Been talking a lot of ACC basketball, football, the Clemson culture. Jake, right now, looking as you close out here the SEC, the last few games before we go to the tournament. I'll throw it to you first, and then Jimmy. Give me two teams that you will pick. One of those two is going to win the SEC tournament.
I mean, you can't not say Alabama with the way they've played and the experience that they have. I mean, I got to say Alabama and Arkansas. To me, and a lot of it, again, I don't know what the bracket looks like yet. So until I see that, I won't have a great feel for it. But I'm telling you, man, something just gives me a weird feeling about Kentucky. They're starting to play a little bit better. BJ Boston's starting to figure it out. Sarr's starting to realize that this isn't a ballet dance. You got to be physical down low. And we all know how much talent's on that roster, and they got to win it. I mean, there's no surprise. They got to win the SEC tournament. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Kentucky go on a run.
Ooh. I mean, I don't think that's going to surprise anybody because, a lot of people think that's the only way they can get in. Jimmy Hodge, what do you think?
That's the only way they can get in. I don't see them making a. I think you got to win. I think they're going to play in the first round, so they'll have to win 5 games or
right.
with 14. Yeah. I don't see it. I mean, what really gives me questions about them was the fact that in back-to-back nights against a Vanderbilt team, they jumped on 17-4. They had to hang on for dear life. Even in Lexington against the youngest team in Division I basketball, Auburn, they went in the first 9 minutes on a 30-11 run to take a 12, 13-point lead and had to hang on for dear life to beat Auburn. I think that, but they are playing better. I think the one game that really opened people's eyes was the no-show Tennessee pulled at home last week against Kentucky. It's like the game started at 7 o'clock, and I think Tennessee thought it started at 8. I mean, it was just an absolute no-show. And I think Tennessee is really fading down the stretch. I mean, they have not played well at all. That performance at LSU the Saturday before last was they just went through the motions. And, I don't know what's going on with them. As a matter of fact, you had Vandy the other night without Scottie Pippen Jr., and yet, that went right down to the last minute. So that win over Tennessee maybe is not as impressive as, it would have been a month ago. But as far as these conference tournaments are concerned, I think the teams, and this is not the politically correct thing to say, but it's no secret over the past few years, for teams that know they're going to be in the NCAA tournament, they are not heartbroken to go out early because it gives them a couple of extra days to get ready for the NCAA tournament. And we know nowadays what people remember is what you do in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
So it's not as important as it used to be. So, in my mind, trying to predict a winner at this point in time is trying to pick the lottery, really. It's just who really sees it as a must-win situation. And to Jake's point, that Kentucky is the one team that is going to be absolute laser focused on trying to win every game in this tournament. And under those circumstances, and you're playing against other teams that are already in the big dance that might not, be giving it everything they have, to win the conference tournament. Yeah, Kentucky, could go on a roll. I don't see it, but it's certainly possible.
Yeah, they're just.
Hey, can I say this too, Rob? Real quick. Ole Miss is another team to keep an eye on.
Okay,
they've got to win some games. They've got to win these last two, and then they've probably got to get to the championship game. Or if they don't, they better lose to somebody either in the semis that's got a really good resume. But they're really hot right now. Schuler is really carrying the load. And again, just to Jimmy's point, he's exactly right. When you are laser focused, those teams like Alabama, like Missouri, like Tennessee, and like Florida, yeah, they're fighting for the best seed. You want to be playing as great as you can heading into the NCAA tournament. But in what's been a crazy year, a few extra days of rest and, more importantly, preparation are going to be something that you could almost want to trade if you already feel good about it.
Yeah, and we're talking about Tennessee, guys. Rick Barnes won at Clemson. He was at Texas 17 years. They got burned out on each other, I guess. He's at Tennessee. We hear so much about Tennessee's big recruiting classes, top five. They've signed a bunch of 5 stars. But I go back as an example when Jay Wright talked about Villanova. In the first 3 years, they signed 5 or 6 5 stars, and they were 500 or a little above it. And they did a lot of soul searching and realized, hey, we're recruiting kids, the wrong kind of kids. They don't really understand what Villanova is all about. A private Catholic university, a small school in the middle of a big city, Philadelphia, that has 50 plus colleges and universities. They're, Drexel, Temple. We know about all the big 5 with the Palestra and all, but they recruited kids that really didn't understand the culture. They went then and started recruiting kids, didn't get all the 5 stars, but they got guys that were fundamentally strong basketball players. They understood that culture at Villanova. They won a couple of national championships here in the last 5 or 6 years. Tennessee, they're bringing in big time talent, but there's no Admiral Schofield on this team. There's no real leader. And that's a maturity thing. Rick Barnes has not forgotten how to coach basketball, but there's no alpha male in charge taking control. Jake, why is that at Tennessee right now? They're just like a ship without a rudder and a sail and a crew.
Yeah, well, when I look at it, number one, at this level of the sport, at the Division I level, at the SEC, it's very hard to rely on true freshmen to come in and not only perform while they're getting used to the league and the college game, but to lead as well. And if you look at guys like Fulkerson and Pons, last year Admiral Schofield was the leader. That was the guy they could all look to. And then you become the senior. You're the guy that's got to lead. And there's a ton of pressure that you put on yourself. And so really, I don't look at the freshmen as much as I look at the upperclassmen. Fulkerson has not performed very well compared to what he did last year. Pons has disappeared on the offensive side of the ball. And Jaden Springer's very talented. He's going to be a very good player. But you're right. They don't have any leadership up top. And sometimes when you become the guy, it can be a little too much. Now, I'll say this. The light switch could come on. And if the light switch comes on and they get a little confidence, they could make a run. But, they haven't showed anything like that was going to happen. And, their confidence and we always talk about self-esteem and swagger isn't very high right now.
Yeah, I've always believed this. If a dog will bite, he'll do it when he's a pup. What are they waiting on? Jimmy Hodge, you've got great insight. You see things from your vantage point. You're in Knoxville right now. Tennessee, Thompson Bowling Arena, when they built that 25,000-seat arena, they were making a statement. Hey, we want to be bigger than Rupp. The University of Kentucky, greatest basketball program in college history. But it ain't working out that way. The women's basketball program, super successful. Pat Summitt won 7 national championships. Since her departure, when she stepped down, their program, and they've had some success this year, but it's nothing like it used to be. It's all about the culture, and everyone that you hire has to fit. It's like a puzzle. You can have a puzzle, but if you lose pieces to it and the replacement pieces are not the right ones, it's not going to fit. It's not going to connect. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, you have to be able to know who to bring in. And of course, we all know that the toughest decision an administration will have to make is after having a legendary, iconic coach who to replace that coach with. And the kind of pat saying over the years is that you don't want to be the person that replaces the iconic legend. You want to be the person to come after the person who replaces the legendary coach. And in a lot of cases, it's been true. There have been a few exceptions, Tom Osborne for Bob Devaney, and so again, they just haven't been able to have that particular, at least in the Tennessee women's basketball with Holly Warlick didn't work out, and I think Jolly is a work in progress, but I think with Tennessee though, their future is with those freshmen, clearly with Springer and with Johnson, and I think those guys kind of like the Auburn freshmen. They kind of hit the wall, and with Cooper, he unfortunately wasn't able to start his season until January 10th, so that held Auburn back a lot. And then, people don't realize he's still only been a college basketball player now at this level for like six weeks. Yeah. So those guys, I mean, when you look at Auburn and Tennessee, I think their future, is ahead of them. And I've said earlier before Jake came on that the best move Auburn could have made was to just self-impose a postseason ban, get all of that stuff behind them, and really gear up for the 2021-22 season. And I've got to think that Cooper is certainly going to be back. I think maybe had he played the whole season, we might be having a different conversation. But as Bill said, I mean, he needs to put on, at least 10, 15 pounds, get some strength, and to be able to handle the wear and tear of a Power 5 conference seasons. And I'll promise you, when he gets into the NBA, when you're talking an 82-game regular season, you're going to take some pounding. So he really, I think, needs to, work in those two areas, and probably be a lottery pick next year. And then again with Tennessee, I look for them to possibly have a big season next year behind Springer and Johnson. But as far as just this tournament and so forth, the SEC tournament, it's strictly wide open, and we're just going to have a wild and crazy NCAA tournament, because you've got 30 or 40 teams that are virtually dead even, behind Gonzaga and Baylor, and then you got 3 Big Ten teams to join those two that have all the tools you need to make a big run. They have those big 6'10" bruisers. And I think it's really critical to have one of those type of guys that can just knock people around underneath, rebound, play tough defense, and just clog up the lane for opposing guards who are trying to drive through there. So, it's going to be a great NCAA tournament. These next 3 or 4 weeks are going to be a lot of fun to watch.
They are. Jake, and Jimmy, everybody out there, here's a question. Where are the 7-footers? And I think, Jake, you made a comment a couple of weeks ago, and it cracked me up. But you talk about these teams, they get into the NCAA tournament, and out of nowhere, they're playing some team that's been together for 3 or 4 years. None of the guys came out as 4 or 5-star blue chip, can't miss recruits, but they're a team. And you get some 7'5" guy from Estonia or Lithuania or Greece that can shoot 3-pointers, rebound, plays defense, can do it all. You've never heard of him. In America, it seems like 6'7" is the new norm. Running up and down the court, it's all athleticism. Gordon Ford, who's on here with us regularly, really knows college basketball and NBA. He made a comment last week. It was great. The basketball players today are sold to the college coaches, recruiters, all on talent alone. And it is. I think it is almost exclusively talent, not on the fundamentals and all. anything going to be done to change that, or does that just correct itself? Because these European players that come over here fundamentally are so sound, and y'all are right. They pick up in 9th and 10th grade. A lot of them start playing against professionals, so they are ready and they're fundamentally sound.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot different over there. It's not, Uzbekistan State versus Gastonia Tech or anything. That's not how it works over there. But
there we go.
Again, you look at teams, like the run Auburn made outside of Austin Wiley. They didn't have a 5-star on that roster. You had really, Jared Harper was a 4, Bryce Brown was a 3 that I think they beat Tulane on late in the deal. But, when it comes to the tournament, and number one, talent's always going to listen, there's a lot of guys that can dribble good. There's a lot of guys that can shoot good when they're open, but there's not a lot of guys that are 6'7" that are unbelievably talented, because you're projecting. That's what recruiting is.
Yeah.
You're projecting a product that's not finished. So you'd rather hedge your bet on somebody that has a lot of talent, has that blend of size, and has that ceiling. But when you watch the NCAA tournament, this is the biggest argument against the one and done. Not only that, some people don't think it's good for the kid, but that it takes away from the NCAA tournament, because the teams that tend to do well in the NCAA tournament have experienced guards, and they can play inside and out, and they have the ability to switch defenses and not really fall off a cliff. And that's why you always have these surprise teams. I'm trying to remember the guy's name from South Dakota State a couple years ago. Jacob Dahmer, not Jeffrey Dahmer. I know it's not Jeffrey Dahmer.
Hey, come on over for dinner.
He was a big guy that could do everything. And again, it's not like, especially after, the first round game, that you have a ton of time to prepare for that next round game. You get a day off to prep, kind of relax, go through your stuff. And you may run into a team that's experienced, that can dictate the pace of the game, and therefore dictate the score of the game. And that's why you see sometimes these teams that have a bunch of talented guys, especially young guys, go into the tournament and get upset by a team from the Sun Belt or Conference USA in those first couple rounds that have played together for a long time, that understand how they have to win, but more importantly, understand how to close the game out. And the teams that shoot free throws the best typically win in a close game.
Yeah, and you're right about it. I mean, the Eastern Europeans, I've traveled all over Europe, and I just remember during the summer, everywhere you went, it wasn't soccer, it was professional basketball that was on TV. And you think about the Eastern European, the stereotype. Hey, who will ever forget that great skit on Saturday Night Live? Dan Aykroyd and Steve Martin. Yortuk and Yertuk Jordanovic. We are two wild and crazy guys. And you think about, but European basketball, Jake, you're right. They're so much more focused on fundamentals. Throw in some talent and maturity, it's making a difference. But in America, y'all, there's this infatuation with a kid that comes out in his first few games. And Jake, you've pointed this out. Hey, how much better would Sharif Cooper be this year? He missed half his season because the NCAA just bullied, going after his dad and punished the kid. There ought to be, the NCAA should be held accountable for crap like that. Okay. And think about, and I'm glad you said that. But you look around at the way guys come out there and have a few good games early on, and all these websites will come out. And I'm not begrudging people for trying to project, but they're doing it based on a few games. It's just like getting a coach who gets hot in the NCAA tournament and hiring them to be the head coach of a major program. I mean, Arkansas did that with several guys, Pelfrey, Stan Heath, whatever. But now they've got Eric Musselman, but he'd done it consistently. His father, great NBA pedigree. I think when it comes to recruiting, I want to look at a guy that's done it for a while. And I know you've got to grab them because everybody wants them. Like the 33 5-stars in the country this year, 21 of them signed with 5 schools: Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Clemson, and, Ohio State. So where'd the other 12 go? And I'll give you another example of that talent. In the Super Bowl, we just had Tampa Bay, 31-9 over Kansas City. And I go back and look on both rosters combined. There was one 5-star recruit, that being a product of St. Aug High School there in New Orleans, Leonard Fournette. And then you had like 24 stars between the two schools, 22 3 stars, and 41 others. That's 2 stars or below. And Jake, I want to ask you this. We're about out of time. You coached 9 years in college football. You coached at South Alabama. You played baseball there, grew up in Auburn and Opelika. When you're recruiting at, say, a South Alabama, I think it makes you a better evaluator of talent because you've got to go find the guys that there's not a complete, 3-part, series of books on. You've got to go do a lot more digging, and you find those guys that are under the radar. But let's face it, out of 3,400 kids that might sign Division I scholarships, 34 of them would be 5 stars, about 354 stars, and the other 3,000 or so, give or take a few, are going to be 3 stars or below. So talk about what that's like when you go out and start building a book.
Yeah, well, I think there's a common misconception. It's not like coaches just sit there and watch highlight films the whole time. You'll watch the highlight film to see if you like the kid. And then if you like the kid, the first thing you do is go and get the game film. And you learn a ton more from the game film, not only how good the player is athletically, but how they play in the second half, how they play when they're down. Do they take plays off? Because, again, a highlight film can be misleading. But when you're at a place that isn't a Power 5, you're exactly right, Rob. It makes you a better recruiter because you realize you're not getting that 5-star. You're not getting that high 4-star. You've got to be able to go and find a kid that may be a little bit undersized, maybe a little light in the pants right now, and say, we project this kid's going to be a good Sunbelt player or a great Sunbelt player down the road. And I'm not talking about transfers or anything like that. But what it does is it teaches you not to take what Nick Saban would call the rat poison. And you really find out the ways to look at a kid. I'll give you a great example. One thing I learned right when I got there was when you're watching an offensive lineman, it's great to watch him pancake guys and all that stuff, but watch how quick he gets up off the ground. That'll tell you how athletic he is. That'll tell you really his ability to move, his ability to bend, how strong and flexible he is in his ankles and in his hips. And there's a lot of little things that you learn that when you get to that bigger place and you're having to make a decision between 2 big-time 4 stars or 2 big-time 5 stars, those little nuances that you picked up because you had to when you were at a smaller place end up making the final decision on which kid you're going to go after the hardest.
I love that. That's great stuff. And Jimmy, look, unfortunately, guys, we've run out of time. Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville, Jake Crane over in Atlanta, host of the J-Boy Show podcast. It is solid gold. Listen, guys, we're going to pick this up again in the morning. Jake, hopefully you can be on there with us tomorrow, 8 to 10 a.m. Central, at least in the second hour. I know you got a lot going on. We're all out there trying to solve all the world's problems before midnight every day. It just never happens. That's why we keep doing a show, but I love it. You're doing great stuff with your podcast and all, but I love that take about, again, the South Alabama, Montana State University. Look around the country at the smaller schools and go back and look. Yeah, the SEC had, I think, 24 players between Kansas City and Tampa Bay's roster. The Big Ten was second with 19, and the Big 12 was, the ACC was third with maybe 10 or 11. But it is amazing where all these guys come from. But 1 5-star, that being Leonard Fournette, and ironically, he was basically cut, wasn't he, guys, from a 1-15 Jacksonville Jaguars team traded for.
He was out of the league for a week or two this year.
Yeah, I mean, he was like, "We'll work, hey, give me a chance." And you could have argued that he was the MVP in that game, but it's hard not to give it to the GOAT, Tom Brady, the 199th pick in the draft, who played behind Brian Greasy when he broke his ankle, Drew Henson, who was a hell of a baseball player too. But when Tom Brady got in, he made it count. But Jake, real quick, tell people how they can follow you, and then we'll say goodbye to everybody and be back with you tomorrow.
Definitely, yeah. Pencil me in for 9 tomorrow there, Rob.
Love it.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We've got a brand new YouTube channel. It's fantastic. It's the J-Boy Show. Go subscribe. We're dropping an interview every weekday and one on Saturday most weeks. I don't think you're going to find a better guest list. And also, I want to thank the audience. We just hit #1 on Apple Podcasts, Sporting News. So really excited about that and continuing to watch it grow. And it's all because of the audience. And I always love coming on, Rob, Jimmy. You know what y'all mean to me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, ditto here, and Jimmy, this is great stuff. Want to say thank you to all of our guests today here, Sidelines.live. Again, we've been broadcasting from Red River Ford Toyota over here in Nguyen, Arkansas. We will be back with you tomorrow, 8 to 10 a.m. Central. Sidelines.live. Check us out. Sports 56 WHBQ 96.1 and the new FM 98.5. And again, Sunday afternoon, 3 to 5 p.m. on the wrap-up show, plus podcast throughout the week. Hey, don't quit because you're done. Quit because you're out of time. And your wife, your producer, Audrey's looking over there at you, breathing fire out, going, you've gone over. And so anyway, hey, Jake, you be careful. Jimmy, be careful. And we'll be back on in the morning. And again, go to our website, sidelines.live. Follow us on Twitter. Thank you, Jake, for reminding me and coaching me, and Nigel. Get on Twitter, and Audrey, get on Twitter, but follow us on Twitter at sidelines_live, and check out on the Apple podcast. That is Sidelines Space Live. This is great stuff. We'll be with you tomorrow. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great night, everybody. I like that. Yeah.